though it has been a year, and in some ways it feels like a very long year, and in some ways it feels like this just happened yesterday. I remember where I was with a U.S. senator doing work, and we all kind of got the news the night before. But at that point, Logan, I mean, when you got that alert that there had been some kind of attack in Israel, it was pretty late at night, I think. And those aren't so unusual. No. And we didn't realize what we were going to wake up to, the level of brutality that would be on our television screen on those morning shows.
Yeah, I think a lot of us felt it over the weekend as we sort of approached this one-year anniversary, and we started seeing all of the clips, all of the reminders, all the people starting to post, and on both sides of this issue, unfortunately. And we even saw our own vice president, who's currently running for president, have to respond to some questions. We're going to play some of that. I know a lot of you are watching right now. You probably see the title. You wonder what we're talking about. Kamala Harris was directly asked about her relationship with Prime Minister Netanyahu and how that is. Here, let's go ahead and take a listen to that as she dodges this very important question on this anniversary, where we look back and remember what happened on October 7th of last year. And this was just yesterday.
Do we have a real close ally in Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American people and the Israeli people? And the answer to that question is yes.
You could even say that about many of the Iranian people that live under the authoritarian of the Ayatollah. Would you say that, oh, well, we can't work with the Ayatollah, but there's many Iranian people we love our relationship with. The Israeli people make up the IDF. Right. Everyone serves. They serve their country. Everyone doesn't vote for Prime Minister Netanyahu. And you don't have to say
divisive.
You don't have to say like he's the only politician that only we'd ever support. What you say is that he's the duly elected leader of Israel, and the people of Israel are our allies. And if that is their leader, we're going to work with the leader they choose. We're not going to get ourselves involved in Israel's domestic politics. But while they say that other countries are getting involved in our politics, the left has been getting involved in Israeli politics since, I think, the Clinton years.
It's historically the case that they have said that they've called Israeli prime ministers our friends. I mean, they refer to each other as friends. Netanyahu refers to Biden as a friend, even though there's a lot of stress in that relationship, and Biden has been less than a friend. But we see now with this new push, they're trying more and more to demonize him. And this really did not start with Kamala Harris. It started with Barack Obama. The Obama-Biden administration, they couldn't say we're anti-Israel, even though they were completely anti-Israel on policy. So they blamed Netanyahu. They demonized him and said, no, you can be pro-Israel and still not like Netanyahu. And then it was, you could be pro-Israel and not like Netanyahu's party. Well, he could, because they realized it was the biggest party and it supported all these. Now it turns out that there is a consensus in Israel. There was a vote in the Knesset where every member of Knesset that represented the Jewish parties, or Arab parties, or the Zionist parties, because there are a couple of non-Zionist parties, voted against the idea of a Palestinian state. Why? Precisely because this administration, Biden and Harris, have been pushing for it in the wake of October 7th. They've been pushing to reward terror by creating a terrorist state, which Israelis across the board are saying no to. And so they are trying to say it's about Netanyahu, when in fact they are absolutely oppositional to the Israeli people. The will of the Israeli people is no Palestinian state, but the will of the Democrats today is Palestinian state, regardless of what the Israelis want. And that's what's happening.
We can't forget the fact that just a few months ago on college campuses, I mean, it's still happening somewhat, but of course that got essentially exported to here after the October 7th massacre. Just weeks later, maybe let's say a couple months later.
Yeah, it's usually like 6 weeks.
6 weeks of mourning, and then all of a sudden it turned on Israel, and we had those massive protests on college campuses across the country. And even today, we have at high schools in Washington planned walkouts in support of, support essentially against Israel. There's an ad for it right now. 365 days of genocide is what they're calling it. Walkout for Palestine, which is happening today. And so we have that still happening, not only now on our college campuses, but now in our high schools. And it's a sober reminder of where we are. And just reading comments today, I saw random celebrities posting support of Israel, and just to go through the comments, quickly. And some of them were very much still the bring them home hostage kind of comments. And the first ones are, you got to be kidding me, right? You know, these kind of comments on nothing controversial, on nothing political, on just, hey, the hostages are still there, still over 100. And we need to take care of it. But still, the comments from what seems to be the American people are saying, how dare you, you know, David Arquette, you know, a random celebrity posting something that should not be offensive to anyone. But it is, and it's, again, a sobering reminder of where we are today, a year later, you kind of dreading this anniversary coming up today, because it's not a situation where the world came together. It's actually a situation where the world was very separated.
While Israel has been engaged in a conflict for nearly a year, and now it appears to be that there will be a new conflict. I mean, the conflict has already begun, but whether or not how far they will go with boots on the ground into Lebanon with Hezbollah. And yet we get from Harris and the Biden administration pledges of money that will go to Lebanon while they are currently harboring Hezbollah. And if you want to learn a little about Lebanon, I'm not trying to hate on Lebanon, but they have their own military separate from Hezbollah. They have their own government separate from Hezbollah. Hezbollah does get elected with inside. They have a political movement that is allowed to run for office, which, again, we've seen now how those supposedly separate groups are not separate at all. So I think it should fall on the Lebanese people, their military. You don't like the fact that Hezbollah fires rockets at Israel. If you really don't like that, then why not get Hezbollah out of your country? Why not use your own troops? Why does it have to be the rest? Why does the United States need to rebuild Beirut if you are harboring a terrorist group with your own military? Why doesn't the world say, fine, if they do want to do it, here's the money and weapons to do it. You fight Hezbollah. You take them on. Why don't you get them off the border with northern Israel? Why is that the UN's job? Why is that Israel's job? And I think we have to start looking at countries like that once again. If you are going to harbor these groups and you're too afraid to fight them, then I don't think you should be getting money to rebuild any of your buildings. The blood is on your hands too. It may not be as direct, but you obviously aren't willing to die for the freedom or independence of your country like members of our military are.
It should be no surprise that there is no solution. There is no significant progress from a global standpoint against this underlying threat when we have leaders who refuse to identify and perhaps don't even want to try to understand what this threat really is. And this threat is a threat coming from radical Islamist terrorists. Israel obviously knows this more than probably anyone else in the world, given they are surrounded by these threats, whether it's coming from Hamas or Hezbollah, now even with support from the Houthis. They understand in a very real way on an almost everyday basis what this threat is. The fact that Kamala Harris still refuses to utter the words radical Islamist terrorists, what to speak of actually being able to articulate the ideology that these Islamist terrorist groups are spreading around the world, that we're seeing on full display on some of our college campuses, and how dangerous of a threat that really is to civilization, to freedom-loving societies. It should be no surprise then that she cannot be trusted to defeat this threat, which can only be defeated both ideologically and militarily. She cannot be trusted as our commander-in-chief for this and many other reasons, and this should weigh into the decision that we as voters make as we head into the final 30-day stretch of this election.